Hey, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Amin, Chin, Jenna. How are you guys doing today? You guys want to see something cool? Good morning, Formula, Beamer, Belcut. So my mom sent me something in the mail for Halloween. This is chainmail. I think she made this. I'm pretty sure she made this. And it came with this, like the coif or whatever. Let's get ready for the apocalypse. Oh, yeah. Oh no, is my hair gonna get stuck in here? Oh, this is so sick. I'm pretty sure she made this because she does knitting and all that. Wait, actually, I don't know. This would be a massive project. Hey, good morning, Foreign Wanderer. Alex says, you're not real. I'm not sure she made it now. I just wouldn't be surprised. She makes like a lot of stuff. Chin said, are you gonna wear this on Halloween? I should. Oh. Clamor says, what is happening? Hey, just roll with it. You know, life throws you a curveball, just roll with it. You guys want to go trick-or-treating? That's a great idea, Jenna. Oh man, I'm pretty sure my hair is gonna get totally stuck in here. This is a really nice touch, thank you. People are taking Halloween more seriously this year. Have you noticed that? Like we're all quarantined, but I'm noticing tons and tons of Halloween decorations. Good morning, Benny Haha. You guys should really get some chainmail. Because everyone's bored. Yeah, I know. Or just something... It's like trying to have something somewhat normal as well. You know, like this time of year, there's Halloween. And there's probably not going to be trick-or-treating, but you can still try to get that experience somehow. Because at first I saw Halloween decorations going up like September 30th, and I was like, guys, you're a month early. You're a month early. This is like, it's got some weight to it. All right, let's get started. Let's get started. My neighbor duct taped his decoration on the door. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, today we're gonna spend our time talking about GG diagrams. Actually, yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's say a vehicle completes a time trial on a given track. How can you quantify if this vehicle is completing that lap as fast as it possibly can? So different vehicles might have a different optimal time, but like, how can you begin to assess what that might be? So from our study of longitudinal racing, so just going down a straight, we looked at bang optimal control, which is the theory you would use to study this type of thing. So if you're traversing a stretch of track that has some endpoint velocity constraints, and what I mean by these constraints is maybe you have to enter the straight at a certain speed and leave at a certain speed. If you're doing that as fast as possible, that's going to require maximum acceleration followed by maximum deceleration. But the idea is you're always using the maximum acceleration. It doesn't matter if it's forward or reversed. I mean, it does matter, but at all times throughout the race, you're going to be applying maximum force to the vehicle in some direction or another. So for racing in general, so not just in a straight, also in corners, we should always apply as much acceleration as possible. So it's just that the direction that we apply this acceleration is always changing. So this brings us to the GG diagram. The purpose of a GG diagram is to trace a vehicle's lateral and longitudinal acceleration over the course of a race. And then by studying the GG diagram after a race, we can see if a vehicle was pushed to its acceleration limits, assuming that we know what those limits are. It's not very easy to know for sure, but today we're going to talk about how you might get a general guess of what those limits are. All right, below I'm going to show you two GG diagrams, and then I'm going to try to open up a video that Brennan sent me. He's in our class, but he has an app that can generate a GG diagram in real time. But so here are two GG diagrams collected from Formula One racing, and these are from a couple years back. I think this one on the left is from the late 80s. This one on the right was from the early 90s, but it just gives you an example. So it looks like something they might show you in a psychological test, right? Like, what do you see here? Okay, let's break it down. The vertical axis is longitudinal acceleration. I know, they look wild, right? Looks like a tree and a bush. I know, this one especially looks like it looks like a tree. Okay. So how do you make this? This axis is longitudinal acceleration, so if you move up this way, this is accelerating in a straight line, driving. If you go back down this way, that's braking. So this is the 0 longitudinal acceleration line. So if you're above this, then you're accelerating. If accelerating in a straight line, and if you're below this, you're slowing down your velocity in a straight line. So then let's explain this horizontal axis. This is lateral acceleration. So if you're to the right of this, you're turning right. If you're to the left of this, you're turning left. And so it's plotting acceleration. And why do we call it a GG diagram? We're plotting it in G's. So over here, we can see the maximum acceleration in a right turn. If I go down here, I don't know, maybe it's like 2.6 G's or something like that. And if I find the bottom limit down here for braking, then during this race, the maximum braking acceleration they experienced was like -3 G's. So if you track over the whole duration of a race, it'll make some shape. And like I said earlier, the question is, we know to race as fast as possible, you should always be using maximum acceleration that the car can provide. So what we're trying to do is say, what is the theoretical limit that you can reach in any direction? And during the race, how close were you to reaching that limit? And that's a measure of, were you pushing this car to its force production limits? Okay, so this is from Team Lotus back in the day. Is Team Lotus even still around? Okay, let's compare these two GG diagrams a little bit. So a simple thing you can do is look at the minimum and maximum acceleration. So the maximum longitudinal acceleration on this left one, it's, I don't know, around positive 1.8 G's. The minimum we already identified at the bottom. The minimum longitudinal acceleration was like -3 G's. And if we look at the left and right, on the right over here, it looked like plus 2.6 G's or something like that. And then the minimum would be for a left turn. And it looks like the left turns that this person made were a little less extreme than the right turns. And that could just depend on the geometry of the track as well. Okay, so that's something you can, that's just a basic stat you can get out of a GG diagram. And so this one on the right, let's look at this. The maximum longitudinal, maybe it's up here. Let's say that's like plus 1.2 G's. The minimum longitudinal acceleration, that's when you're braking, and that's somewhere down here. Maybe that's -3.4 G's. And then the big difference between these two GG diagrams is this one on the right experienced way more lateral acceleration. I mean, look at this. I would say that's like around plus or minus 4 G's. So already just looking at these two strange shapes, right? What can I learn from this? Well, I can learn that from this race on the right, the corners were taken more aggressively. And that this isn't necessarily from the same car. So maybe the car on the left had tires that have a smaller friction limit. And maybe the tires used in the race on the right had more grip. So it's hard to say that this driver on the right was pushing the car to the limit more, because the limits of these two cars just might have been different. But one thing's for sure, that the corners experienced in this situation, they were much more aggressive. Okay, so as you can see, tracing longitudinal acceleration versus lateral acceleration over time creates complex patterns. Oh, right, I wanted to show you this video from Brennan. Let's see if I can find it. Autocross. Oh wait, my head's in the way. So this is an app you can get on your phone. I forget what the name of it is, but look right here. This is the GG diagram being built as a function of time. SoloStorm. Yeah, thank you. SoloStorm. And I think the axes here, sometimes we switch these axes. Like, I know when John Robinson presented to our class, the vertical axis was lateral. But in this class, I'm using the vertical axis as longitudinal. And I think that makes sense here. So when the point goes over here to the left, that means a left corner. When it goes to the right, that's a right corner. And when you're down here, that's when you're braking. Is that right? So this app is really cool, but this gives you an idea, like, how is this thing made? Well, it's just tracing the acceleration over time, and it builds a complex plot. Yeah, it's really, really cool. This app is $200. I looked it up, and it's a beautiful app. Look at that. But there might be cheaper ones. I know I had a couple students who found a cheaper app at one point, but it won't be as beautiful as this. So you can get this in your car. You can get it on your phone, and it's really fun. Okay, so let's go here. So we can get combinations of lateral and longitudinal acceleration at times. So it's not like it's just pure longitudinal, pure lateral. You get mixtures. So an example of this is called trail braking, which we'll get to again at the end of this lecture. But trail braking is braking while cornering. So that means you have lateral acceleration that's keeping you in the corner, and you also have longitudinal acceleration that's slowing you down as you go into the corner. So trail braking, well, it's common at the very top levels of racing, but it requires a tremendous amount of skill to not oversaturate the tires. Like, if any of you have taken a motorcycle safety training class, this is something that they drive home, that when you're taking a corner, you don't brake when you go into the corner, because your tire spins, how do you say this? Your tire deforms, and that's how it generates force, right? So if it's deforming laterally to hold you in the corner, and then on top of that, you deform the tire longitudinally to make it brake, well, it can only deform so much. The friction can only hold so much before it starts to slide. So if you start combining lateral and longitudinal accelerations and you don't know what you're doing, you can really make your tires slide out, and then you're done. Okay, so let's talk about the limits of the GG diagram, because performance for a given vehicle is how close do you get to the limit. Yeah, understeer, intensified. And we'll talk about understeer, oversteer, neutral steer pretty quick here. Not today. Okay, but so this is one limit that I'm just referring to. So the friction limit, this is tractional force limitations dictated by the tire road friction coefficient. Something that I don't know if I mentioned before, but it makes sense. You don't just have a friction coefficient for a tire, because friction depends on the tire and the surface that it's on. So the friction coefficient for a tire on a patch of ice is much different than the friction coefficient of a tire on a dry road. So like when we do tire tests, they try to imitate dry pavement. And so when you look at that friction coefficient, that's what you're looking at. But you got to remember, it also depends on the road surface. So the friction limit of a car, it changes with road conditions. But another thing, we know that the more downforce you put on a tire, the more grip it gets. So the friction limit changes with road conditions and downforce. And this gets more important with Formula One cars or really high performance vehicles where aerodynamic downforce tremendously changes the normal load on a tire. I mean, we know that normal load comes from the weight of a car. That's not going to change. But the faster you go in a Formula One car, the more downforce you generate, so you get much more force on the tires, so it gives them more grip. Okay, so the friction limit, that's one thing that limits your GG diagram. You also have the power limit. So this refers to longitudinal acceleration limitations. So this isn't a lateral acceleration thing. This is longitudinal, like going down a straight. And you guys have encountered this. It's dictated by the engine power and aerodynamic drag. Now we've made plots that show the longitudinal acceleration of a car as a function of your gear ratio and as a function of road speed. And what you notice from those plots is the higher your road speed is, the less acceleration you can make, right? The most acceleration you can make is right out of the gate in first gear, and that acceleration drops down eventually just because of the way an engine makes power, but also because of aerodynamic drag. So the power limit decreases with road speed. So the faster you're going, the power limited acceleration goes down. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. We're going to show both of these limits in a graphical fashion. So here's a GG diagram, and so as you're driving, you know, you're going to have that, it's going to trace some shape in here as you turn, as you accelerate, whatever. So the friction limit is this, and it depends on tires. And the road, obviously. Now, this limit, if you put more downforce on the tires, it can grow. So if I put more downforce on the tires, my limit increases because I have more grip, all right? So just imagine the power, that friction limit change depending on how much downforce you have. The power limit is right here, and it limits your longitudinal acceleration. So this is going to go down as your road speed increases. So power limit decreases with road speed. And then these figures on the right are just reminding you about the friction limit of the tires. The top is longitudinal and the side is lateral. And we can get combinations of these two things as you drive around a track. So you're deforming in two different directions. So optimal racing is trying to make sure that you are always being close to the limit. So like an optimal racing strategy is trying to keep your GG diagram out here. Would there be a power limit for braking as well? Not so. For braking, it doesn't depend on the engine power. It's interesting with braking, you have aerodynamic drag that actually enhances your capability for deceleration. Max brake force brakes could generate. I guess you're right, Wyatt. But usually I think the brake, I think your tires slide before you max out your brake force, right? Like, isn't it more likely that you lock out the brakes, like that force is there, but then the tires start to slide? I think that's generally the case, that the tires go before your brakes. Okay, yeah. So here's a cool figure that shows how the limits can change without ABS. Yeah. So let's just look at this first before we go to the description. Let's say you're going at 50 miles per hour. This might be a hypothetical limit. Like you have the friction limit, which is this circle, and then you have the power limit at the top that's capping your ability. So at 50 miles per hour, the max acceleration I can make is maybe 1.2 Gs or something. Now let's say I'm in the same car, but now I'm going 100 miles per hour. Notice the power limit went down. At 100 miles per hour, maybe I can only make 0.7 Gs, but I can corner faster because I have more aerodynamic downforce on my tires at 100 miles per hour. So the friction limit increased. Also, like I can generate more braking force because the aero drag is also helping me. So I have increased grip from the downforce. And then let's say we even go to 150 miles per hour. So now my longitudinal acceleration is much less. Maybe I can only make 0.2 Gs to go forward. But I have much more grip on my tires. So this is just showing that as you drive around a track, yes, you always want to be at the limit of your GG diagram, but the limits kind of change. So you can, I don't know, you're still going to make some complicated shape in here, but you always want to be close to the edge, wherever the edge is right now. And these paragraphs on the right are just reiterating what I said. Okay, now we're going to do some fun examples. These are like little puzzles. So we're going to do a bunch of puzzles. So we're going to complete a series of examples to better understand the connection between a GG diagram and corresponding vehicle motions. So you'll see what I mean here. What we're going to do for each of these is I'm going to give you a very simple GG diagram. So each of these GG diagrams is just going to be one point. And so the point is right here for the first one. And just remember, in general, this point is like moving around, and the complete GG diagram is tracing where that point moved over time. But we're just going to focus on what does this, if we just recorded this one point. Oh, my eraser was being stubborn. Let's sketch what the vehicle trajectory would be. So think about this for a little bit. This will be our easiest one. This is purely longitudinal acceleration. So this is the way I'm going to draw this. The vehicle is going to be moving, like, let's just say in the X direction. It's just moving down the track, but it's accelerating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some points, and let's assume that the time interval between these points is the same. So over some interval delta t, the car moves this much. But because it's accelerating, if I sample delta t later, so this is the same time duration, because the car is accelerating, it's covering more ground. And then this will just continue to increase. So this is what this point on the GG diagram means. You're moving in a straight line forward, and you're accelerating, so you're getting faster and faster. Okay, you get the idea? Okay, what about this one? Now it's purely longitudinal acceleration, but it's negative. So how can I depict this? Well, this time we're decelerating. So let's say I measure the vehicle's position over a time interval. Well, I know the next time I sample them, because I'm decelerating, I should be covering less ground over time. And then maybe like this. And then I'm coming to a stop. Okay. Now, let's try this. In this case, there's no longitudinal acceleration. There's purely a negative lateral acceleration. So first of all, for SAE coordinates, which we're using in this class, negative lateral acceleration means left turn. You're making a left corner. And because the longitudinal acceleration is 0, I should expect constant velocity and remember, we derived this last time. Lateral acceleration for constant velocity is something like this: v squared over r. So if the velocity is constant and ay is constant, then this radius should also be constant. Okay, so putting all this together, if you made a GG diagram that looked like this is what I think it would mean. I think you would be making a left turn with constant velocity on a constant radius circle. Okay. Let's do this one. Okay, so this one's the same thing, but now we have positive lateral acceleration instead of negative. So this is just going to be a right turn at constant velocity on a constant radius path. So we're just getting an idea of what these points mean on a GG diagram. And it's a little complex. Not too complex, but you gotta play with it a little bit. Okay, this one. This one's trickier. Think about this for a second. I have positive longitudinal acceleration. This means that my velocity is increasing, right? I'm like applying some throttle, velocity is increasing. But I have positive lateral acceleration to the right. So I'm also cornering right. But notice if I keep the vehicle at this point, it has constant lateral acceleration. So I'm cornering right, but I'm maintaining that lateral acceleration, but I'm increasing speed. So if I'm going to use this approximation for lateral acceleration, let's break this down. I know that this number is going to be constant, but this number is increasing, and because I have positive AX, so AY would be increasing with a squared relationship for any velocity increase, meaning AY would be going up a lot. So the only way that AY can remain constant is if radius is like dramatically decreasing. Wait. Dramatically increasing. If it was decreasing, AY would an involute. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't have a geometry vocabulary sophisticated enough to even know what an involute is. Is an involute a spiral? Yes. So this is what's happening. I'm cornering to the right and I'm increasing speed, and the radius is increasing dramatically. So, okay, I'm cornering to the right and my speed is increasing. And the radius is getting bigger. So these are kind of fun. Okay, we got to keep going along here. What about this one? So what's the difference between the two? So once again, cornering right, constant lateral acceleration, but velocity is decreasing. So I'm applying brakes, spiral approaching the origin. Fibonacci. Inward spiral changing the arrow direction as well. Okay, so let's try to draw this. So once, like breaking it down, if I'm using a formula like this number is constant. This number is dramatically decreasing. So this has to go up, right? I mean, are the accelerations always constant? No. These are special cases. Wait, the radius has to go. No, the radius has to go down. I'm sorry. This is just for this example. We're starting simple because we're assuming just points right now. and if you could just exist at this point on the GG diagram. But we know in real racing you're always changing everything. But okay, so I'm cornering right, and my speed's going down, and my radius must also be going down. So I start with maybe like a higher speed, and then as I'm getting in here, my speed is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and my radius is shrinking, and that's how I'm able to maintain a constant AY. Okay, tricky, right? Okay, we're going to do one more example coming at this from the opposite direction. I'm going to show you a vehicle path, and then I want you to draw the GG diagram. We're practicing GG diagrams. Okay, so let's say we're doing this. I'm taking a vehicle trajectory and then saying, okay, what is the GG diagram for this? So I broke this maneuver into 5 parts. And you're looking at this from above, and imagine that we're measuring lateral and longitudinal accelerations. So the first step, maintain longitudinal speed while traveling in a straight line. So that's this right here. Then I maintain my speed, but I transition into a right corner, and I reach a lateral acceleration of 0.5 Gs while I'm in that corner. Now, if you have the handout with you, we're going to be filling this out. Okay. And blah, blah, blah. There's 5 steps. How about let's go through this step by step. So if you're going in a straight line, I'll choose like a somewhat yellow color. I'll try to match up the colors here. If I'm traveling in a straight line, maintaining constant speed, then I'm going to be right here at the origin. I'm not accelerating longitudinally, I'm not accelerating laterally, I'm just maintaining a constant speed, right? So part 1, I'm just staying right there. Part 2, I'm going to maintain my speed but transition into a right corner that reaches a magnitude of 0.5 Gs. So let's change our color to green. So if I'm maintaining speed, that means that I'm not accelerating longitudinally. Like maybe I'm going 40 miles per hour. I'm going to stay at 40 miles per hour. I'm not braking or anything. And I'm turning right. So that's why I'm going to the right here. Positive lateral acceleration is a right turn. And I go up to 0.5 Gs. So you would see the dot moving over here for our second stage. All right. So we're making that right turn. Okay, then we go into this stage in red. And what's happening here is the vehicle transitions into a straight and decelerates with a magnitude of 0.5 Gs. So I'm coming out of the corner, I'm going into a straight, and I slow down. And I'm slowing down with an acceleration of 0.5 Gs magnitude. So, so eventually I'm going to end up here because I'm going into a straight and I'm going to decelerate with 0.5 Gs. Now, this is where the details are not really clear in the problem statement, but how do I get from the end of point 2 to the end of of this third maneuver? Well, there's a bunch of ways to do it. So like maybe I take a path like this. But I could have also taken a path like this or something. So there's some flexibility there. Let's say I did this one. So I transitioned out of the corner. I'm going straight. So I know that the lateral acceleration has to decrease because when you're traveling straight, you don't have any lateral acceleration. So that's how I know I have to come back to this center line. Okay, so that's number 3. What's going on in 4? Well, I'm doing this like corner. So I transition into a left corner. I'm increasing speed with a longitudinal acceleration of 0.25 Gs. Okay, so I'm increasing speed, and I reach a lateral acceleration magnitude of 1 G. Okay, so let's do some stuff. So I'm gonna get up to a longitudinal acceleration of 0.25 Gs in this corner, and I'm also gonna be laterally accelerating with like 1 G, so I gotta get like over here too. So I'm gonna do something like this. And like I said earlier, the path here is a little bit unclear. By drawing a tree? We're drawing a tree, everybody. But this is step number 4. I'm getting into a corner, and I'm accelerating through the corner, and I'm turning left. And that's why we kind of got into this quadrant over here, because there's a combination of longitudinal and lateral acceleration. Okay, now we have one more step. We leave this corner, and we're transitioning into a straight, and then I'm gonna reach some constant longitudinal speed. Now, because I'm gonna get to a constant speed, that means that the longitudinal acceleration has to go back to 0. That doesn't mean that my speed is 0, it just means that I'm not increasing speed anymore. So I'm gonna transition out of the corner, I'm going back to the straight, and then I end up here because I'm gonna have constant speed again. Would it be different on the time costing if we use the different path from point to point? Yes, Chin, it would be. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because the next example we're gonna do is gonna show that. We're quickly running out of time, but I'm gonna try to get into this. We might run like 5 minutes over. Okay, so Chin is asking, like, I'm saying it's a little ambiguous on these transitions, like we mentioned on step 3. Like, what if I took this path instead? Which one is faster? And maybe, going back to the principles we discussed at the very beginning, you already know which one is faster. I won't give it away. Okay, let's talk about hairpin turn strategy. Hairpin turns are really cool. The one that's closer to the limits, Amin, you nailed it. Okay, so pushing a vehicle to its limit results in some behavior that might seem counterintuitive. And that's especially with the hairpin turn. So what is a hairpin turn? It's a turn that looks like this. It's like you're heading one direction and then you reverse direction. So it's like I don't know, it looks like a hairpin. But here's some famous ones. If you guys are Formula One fans, you know this turn. This is the hairpin turn at Monaco. I think it's like one of the most famous turns in Formula One racing, but that's a hairpin turn. And there's also one at this Suzuka circuit. And I'm not sure which way you go. Maybe it's this way. But if you're approaching that corner, what's the fastest way to do it? And we're going to use GG diagrams to discuss it. Approach 1. Oh, the other way? Let's flip it. Let's flip it. We're going to go this way. We want to be going the right direction. The first one I'm going to show you is called Classic Racing Strategy. Classic Racing Strategy is, to sum it up, it's using purely lateral or purely longitudinal acceleration. So, okay, I'm going to show the hairpin turn, and let's say we're taking it to the right, and I'm going to show you the classic racing strategy. Let's set this up. All right, first we're going to draw the path. So what you do is, so let's say we start here. What you're going to do is you're going to accelerate, because you want to finish this as fast as possible. But you know that going into the corner, you have to slow down because your tires have limits. And there's a maximum velocity I can enter this corner. So I brake before I hit the corner. So 1 is accelerate. I'm still doing this bang bang control where I'm doing full acceleration. Then I go to full braking. And actually, if I'm really accurate, which I think we should start like right here. And then what you do is you take a circular path, which I think has an origin right here. And basically you want this circle to like just get you through the apex. And let's assume that this is a constant radius. So this third one, you have AY is V squared over R, and V, this AY is the maximum lateral acceleration you can get. And so it's basically constant radius cornering. And then once you get out of the corner, you're going to, did I break this into, yeah, let's do it this way. This will just be accelerate again. Okay, so let's draw this GG diagram. Okay, let's draw it. So for this first stage, we're in a straight and we're accelerating, and you should be accelerating up to the power limit. So this is 1. Like, I want to be accelerating as much as I can. Then 2, and I'm going to draw this like a little bit off the line just so you can like see what's going on here. Step 2, when I brake, I want to be applying as much brake as I possibly can. So I'm going to go down to the friction limit of the tires. I don't want them to skid out, but I want the maximum braking force I can. So that's 2. And now I'm heading into the corner, and I'm going to go with maximum lateral acceleration in a right turn. And what we do, I'm going to put this number 2 over here actually, because this is going to get in the way. The way we make this transition is we basically follow this path. So it's like there's this sharp transition from I'm purely braking and I brake down to that maximum speed, and now I'm purely cornering. And so I'm not applying the brakes as I corner. But I might have to maintain the throttle like a little bit just to maintain constant speed. And so I'm trying to stay at this point through the whole corner. And then when I leave the corner, I'm trying to go back up to here to where I'm purely accelerating in the straight. Okay? And this is like the kind of strategy they might tell you in motorcycle safety school. Don't apply your brakes in the corner. So notice the racing path is kind of what you might expect. It's like symmetrical, and you're trying to keep a really large radius in here so that you can minimize the, what am I trying to say? So you can maximize your radius so that you can get more speed for a given lateral acceleration. Does this strategy work for Mario Kart as well? Of course it does. Actually, I'm not sure. Okay, let's talk about the modern racing strategy. First, I'm going to draw the GG diagram because it makes a little more sense. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to bring this down and superimpose it. I know we're going over time, so thank you for your patience. This is a cool result. Let's think about this first. And Chin pointed this out earlier. Amin pointed this out. There's something missing here. Like, okay, this is fine. I accelerate into the straight for one. And then I come down and I brake before I go into the corner. That's fine. But when I'm transitioning into the corner, wouldn't it have been better to follow this contour? Instead of just going like bam, bam, you want to be at the edge as much as possible. This right here is called trail braking. I'm cornering as I'm braking, and I'm existing right on the edge of danger. Because if you flirt with this line, you can skid out your tires and then you're done. Okay, and then going from 3 to 4, tracing this. And I don't know if they have a special name for that, like trail braking, you know, accelerating as you corner. Okay, but I want to draw for you what this racing path looks like. And this is what makes it a little counterintuitive. So, okay, so here we go. It looks similar at the beginning. So like you're accelerating, and then you're coming up to the corner and you start braking hard. And then what you do is you slowly release the brakes as you corner, and I'll try to get this shape right, but it kind of takes you up here. So you slowly release brakes. So you're still braking, but you're releasing. And so I'm heading this way. So this is kind of, this is 3. This is your trail braking. And then you like swoop back in here. And we call this a late apex. Because if you remember in the classic racing strategy, you might like, you were doing something like this, like kind of. So we like touch this much later. We have a late apex. and you kind of like swoop out here and gradually transition into a straight. So it's something like this. So you have this asymmetrical racing line. And we've found that this is faster. But it's harder to do. Maybe if somebody has a good YouTube video of this, send it to me, because I looked before and it was hard for me to find something that really makes this clear. But this is like a practical application of GG diagrams. Like you look back and you're like, am I staying close to the edges all the time? I don't know. But that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. GG diagrams are a good way of analyzing racing performance. It's good to be able to interpret them, to know what they're telling you. And if you can find a cheap app for your phone, pick it up and see see what happens as you drive around town. But be safe. This chainmail is getting a little uncomfortable because the headphones press onto the chains and then those press onto my ears. I mean, it must have just been brutal back in medieval times. Fashion comes at a cost. That's exactly right, Ben. Some people just don't understand. There's a price to pay for it. They didn't have earphones in medieval times. I guess that's true. Fashion is pain. Pain is fashion. Is that a quote from Zoolander or something? I feel like that would belong in that movie. On Halloween, you should do a parody dress up of Dr. Disrespect, but call yourself Dr. Educate. Dr. Education. Quick question. How about one of my teammates haven't given any response to our team project yet? Should we just finish it? I would give... Because I just posted that over the weekend, I would give your teammate a little bit of time. You know, like email them again. I think it's great that you guys are getting on top of the project right away. But it might be like, I don't know, I'm just making this up. Maybe your teammate was on vacation over the weekend. They're not checking their email. They're just getting back into the swing of things Monday morning. I would say give them another day or two. And just keep them in the loop, give them a chance to participate. But if it gets to be like Wednesday and you still haven't heard anything yet, then reach out to me again. Keep reaching out to your teammate. Dr. Burge can be Dr. Neptune. Yes. Well, yeah, Chin, like, I would I see what you're saying. Like you don't want to like delay. Like maybe you can start putting some preliminary things in place. I'm just saying, just give him like a day. Give him a second to catch up. Whew. All right, everybody. I gotta run to a meeting. I'm gonna remove the chainmail before this meeting. And I hope it doesn't pull out the hair on my head. But I hope you guys are having a great Monday. I hope it's setting you up for a great week. And I will see you guys Wednesday. See you, Jenna.